Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me here today. My name is Paweł FRANKÓW. I'm heading Emerging Markets Analytics at Carpenter. And the topic for today is MTPL reinsurance business and the trends that we can observe on this market in Central Eastern Europe. My plan for today is to start with more or less global view on reinsurance and then move to our region, to Central and Eastern Europe and MTPL in specific. And since I'm an actuary as well, I would like to focus on an actuarial view of MTPL reinsurance and divide it a bit into, or break it down into different components of a model that we typically build in order to price MTPL reinsurance. So I'm going to discuss a bit the frequency of losses, severity of losses, the payout pattern, and finally, last but not the least, interest rates. And let me start with a general view. So, of course, in insurance, in reinsurance, we have this noble mission of facilitating economic growth, smoothing the shocks to the economy. But any business requires capital, and capital has to generate decent return. What you can see on this graph is that in recent years, reinsurers were not able to generate or to meet the cost of equity. And this fact created the pressure on reinsurance prices, and as a consequence, it led to a turn in the economic cycle. And by that, I mean that we are now in the hard market environment for reinsurance. What's expected for 2023 and next years is that the cost and actually the return on equity will increase, and that means that we can expect much higher prices than before. Now, as I said, let's move to our territory, to Central Eastern Europe, and I've selected a couple of countries that illustrates well what's going on with MTPL excess of loss in the market. By the way, I'm going to discuss excess of loss, as this is like 95% of MTPL contracts that we place. There is a bit of proportional, but it's really not that relevant. There is always a limit in proportional reinsurance, and in MTPL we really need unlimited cover. So one message, if there is just one message from this slide, is that rates are going up. But, but let me break it into different components. So first of all, retention. In most of the countries that I'm presenting here, the retention is going up. So basically it means that there is more risk retained on cedent accounts. But at the same time, the price of reinsurance, or adjustable rate, is going up. So it's becoming more expensive. And if on top of that you add that original portfolios are growing as well, it means that reinsurance premium is growing massively. And just, I forgot to mention, we are comparing here renewal for 2023 with 2022, so it's the most recent data. Now, before moving to the next part, I wanted to investigate a bit what are the hot topics. So what we constantly monitor at Carpenter is, what topics are being mentioned during reinsurer earning calls. We then study the transcripts and see what topics are mentioned several times, most often. So, well, inflation definitely still remains topic number one, the hottest topic that we should really focus on during this discussion as well. Then pricing and claims-related challenges are those that are also very important at the moment. So I want to, as well, focus on those three. And as mentioned before, I'm an actuary, and I would like to give you a bit of analytical view on the topic. It's not going to be technical, but that's how I look at these things, and that's the way that I'd like to structure the discussion. So we basically usually, when pricing MTPL Excel, we build a collective risk model. It's just a fancy way of saying that we need to answer two questions. First of all, what is the frequency of losses? So how many losses above certain threshold we can expect in the next year? And the second question is, of course, what would be the size of those losses? What's the severity? So my presentation will be around these two, let's say, topics plus interest rates, because it's also critical to the final price. And starting with frequency. I'm going to use example of different countries in Central Eastern Europe, but the trends, they are universal and can apply to really any country in the region. From this graph on the left-hand side, road accidents present a very obvious trend. They are going down. Of course, there's one problem with models based on history, that if there was any shock, they are no longer useful. So we have to apply or understand the effect of the shock. And in recent years, it's of course COVID-19. So when I look at this graph, I ask myself, okay, so what about 2019, 2020? Can we really take this into account? These were very specific years with, and maybe the low frequency of road accident is primarily related to lockdowns, closed borders, and working from home. So we try to compare years before pandemic and after. So on the right-hand side, you see a graph which is comparing gasoline consumption, which is a measure of how much people travel, how much they move in their cars, and it's actually back to the level of 2019, so back to pre-pandemic times. And at the same time, number of accidents is still going down. So there must be something more to it, something more than just COVID that is causing frequency to decrease. And I want to investigate these other factors that impact frequency of losses. One such thing is that there are newer and newer systems implemented in the cars that improve the safety on the roads. According to European Union regulations, some of these systems are obligatory in the new vehicles. And here, there are just some of them mentioned. You can see that next to each new technology advancement, there is a number showing great decrease in frequency. But of course, it's not going to be that suddenly like that frequency will drop by 20, 30, or 50%. Each year, there are going to be a bit more vehicles with these systems already implemented. But again, it explains why each year it's a bit better. But what good is, I don't know, lane keeping assist if you can see the line on the road? So next advancement, the next thing to take into account, the trend, we can call it whatever we want, is road infrastructure. This time it's example of Poland. From 2009 to 2020, the quality of roads or the number of highways in the country grew massively. And it translates in a very visible way to number of road accidents, fatalities, injuries. They all dropped by more than 50%. And finally, last bit about frequency, number of claims. Here is just a bunch of statistics. This is preliminary data, very recently published, showing you how fatalities decreased in 2022 comparing to pre-pandemic times. It's really amazing, especially if you look at Lithuania or Poland. It's going down by more than 30%. And now let's move from the frequency part to severity of losses. So how big the losses could be once they are, above certain threshold, above priority of excess of loss treaty. And the most important topic here would be inflation. We can distinguish different types of inflation, starting from, the headline CPI. But headline CPI is, good general measure, but we have to take into account other different indices. First of all, we are looking at second-hand motor cars and cost of vehicle parts. And this index is recently slightly above CPI. But what really matters for large losses is wage index and is especially cost of medical services. And you can see that those lines, so the bluish color on the left, they are below the CPI. Which means that for the biggest claims where the cause of loss is typically bodily injury rather than material damage, means that we should apply actually a bit lower inflation than CPI nowadays. Of course, that's just 1 year of inflation. What about the future inflation? And as far as future inflation is concerned, there is a mechanism in every MTPL XL contract that is protecting reinsurance from the impact of inflation, and that's index clause, which means that priority for each layer is being indexed in accordance with wage index usually. And what it means that for payout pattern that is very long in MTPL can take 20, 30 years to pay the claims fully. Priority can increase by, on average, 73%, close to 73%. So from 1 million to 1.7, for example. Okay, and interest rates. Recently, central banks around CEE tighten their monetary policy and keep interest rates unprecedentedly high. So it has several effects. First of all, we expect these actions to reduce the inflation in the future. We may expect economic stagnation or even recession. And here I can say discounting. They increased investment yields from income assets. And to explain what I mean by that is that we have to take into account time value of money. Reinsurers receive premiums very quickly. So again, on the left-hand side on the graph, you can see that premium is being paid very quickly, and recoveries, they develop over time. So the difference, the gap between the two curves, is actually the amount of money that can be invested. And we have to take this into account because this is effectively additional income for reinsurers. And the higher the interest rates, the bigger this part is. And actually, I was trying to make it short and sweet. That will be the last slide. I just want to wrap this up and say that we don't have a crystal ball. I'm being a bit more optimistic. That's my professional bias. But we definitely still remain in a hard market environment, and despite this good-looking trends, we should probably expect that reinsurer rates would stay at least at the same level, if not grow a bit. So that's it. Thank you for hearing me out.